as it burrowed through dense forest before emerging at the top of a small rise. Around me appeared the small, well-tended houses and expertly manicured lawns of Crescent Cove's westernmost border, with the rest of the town sloping gently down toward the ocean in front of me. I felt my breath catch a little as I drove through the familiar streets and then past the grounds of the Collingwood estate, the big house rising in solitary splendor behind wrought iron gates. The neighborhood was postcard perfect, bungalows and quaintly historical homes sitting behind lush lawns and colorful profusions of flowers, with glimpses down to the water almost everywhere you looked. Turning north after the Collingwood estate, I bypassed Main Street and the inevitable snarl of tourist traffic, choosing another route that took me past the incongruously imposing facade of the local library and the red brick fire station, before turning, with some trepidation, onto Ravenwood Lane. The street was named for the rainforest that crowded close to this end of town, its cool air filled with the croaks and calls of half-seen ravens. Trees towered overhead as I drove slowly to the very end of the winding road. There, down a curving gravel track, I came at last to my aunt's cottage, a one-story bungalow built in the craftsman style. It sat on a small rocky rise, its sprawling garden enclosed by a white picket fence that held back the encroaching forest. This side of the cottage was cloaked in perennial gloom by the trees, and my aunt had filled the garden here with ferns and hostas and shade-loving flowers, artfully arranged around a big stone-lined pond at the garden's center. I parked the car next to a sleek, dark red sedan that had been pulled up close to the fence and slowly got out, taking in big lungfuls of cool air as I did so. There was another car parked at the far end of the gravel patch, an old blue Volvo that I guessed had belonged to my aunt. Stepping into the garden for the first time in more than 20 years, I paused, one hand still on the gate, and closed my eyes. It was so peaceful here, so beautiful. I could almost imagine my aunt's voice calling to me from inside, telling me that dinner was ready, or asking if I wanted to walk down to the beach. But my aunt was gone, and with her, any real connection I had to this place. My eyes opened, the tranquil atmosphere suddenly oppressive somehow. Troubled, I latched the gate behind me and set off down the winding paths of crushed stone that looped through the garden. The cottage looked unchanged, its shingled siding painted a bright yellow that glowed even in the shadows of the forest. It took up a comfortable amount of space, its tall lattice windows surrounded by cheerful white trim that also decorated the overhanging eaves of the steeply gabled roof. Heading left along the side of the building, I passed beneath the crooked limbs of an enormous oak tree, the picket fence rather whimsically running up and over the gnarled hump of its roots, and patted its trunk fondly as I wandered past. Then I came to the front of the cottage, and before me opened a vista so lovely and familiar that I felt my heart catch in my chest. There was the ocean, deep blue under the brighter cerulean of the sky, stretching toward the dim shadows that were all I could see of the mainland nearly 20 miles away. The view was spectacular, and the cottage had been built to take full advantage of it. The front garden ran another 50 or 60 feet to the edge of the bluff, which then dropped off precipitously to a rocky beach below, accessed by an ancient rickety staircase. The front garden was mainly lawn, bordered on 3 sides by wide flower beds filled with a riot of color. All along the edge of the bluff, spindly seagrasses bent and fluttered in the wind, forming a nice contrast with the expertly tended grass my aunt had cut every week, rain or shine, with her decrepit push mower. I paused and drank it all in, but before I could do more than that, someone fluted "Yoo-hoo!" at me. I turned to see a small middle-aged